Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee, Books, and Rain. I'm Rachel, and I do have coffee over here on the little side table, so if I need it, I will grab it. And I have books and my reviews, as well as no rain, but that's okay. I have some really nice, probably about, let's see, 72-degree weather. So it is really quite a lovely day. I've got my fall colors on, kind of matching the decor of this little cabin that I'm in. And yeah, I am enjoying this week while I am in like the Gatlinburg Pigeon Forge area. It is really peaceful. I've been able to sleep with the windows open and it's been really quiet. Not a ton of noise until probably the sun starts coming up, and then you can hear the crows and the ravens kind of cawing. So, honestly, I'm not mad about it. I'm usually an early riser myself. But let's dive into the first book of the moment, and it is The House of Quiet by Kiersten White. I think I wanted this book to be more concise, and as I explain it to you, I think you'll understand. But let's dive into the summary and go from here. From the #1 New York Times bestselling author of And I Darken comes a dark fantasy about a girl who will do anything to find her sister, including posing as a maid to infiltrate the mysterious House of Quiet. To save her sister, she must enter the house. In the middle of a deadly bog, since the House of Quiet is a place for children whose procedure triggered powers too terrible to be lived with, their last hope for treatment. But no one knows how they're healed or where they go afterwards. Bertie has begged, bargained, and blackmailed her way inside as a maid, determined to find her missing sister Magpie. But what she discovers is more mysteries instead of the destitute children who undergo the procedure. In hopes of social advancement, the house brims with aristocratic teens wielding strange powers they should never have been burdened with. Though Bertie wants to ignore them, she can't help but being drawn to stoic and silent Forest, charmed by clever River, and concerned for the youngest residents. And with a fellow maid, Minnow, keeping tabs on everything Bertie does, danger is everywhere. In her desperate search for Magpie, Bertie unearths terrifying threats and devastating truths, forcing her to confront just how much she's willing to sacrifice to save her own sister. Because in the House of Quiet, if you find what's lurking beneath, you lose everything. Unravel the mystery, ignite the rebellion. So it's about 304 pages in hardback, and it is expected publication on September 9th. So I am going to be a few days behind on getting this out, but that's okay. I'm going to try to get it in within the week that it comes out. Um, so I'm probably giving this book about a 3.75 ish. Will I potentially round it up? Yeah, because I don't think it deserves a 3, but I'm really on the fence. I have not yet written my review for it for Goodreads or for NetGalley, but I do plan on trying to get that done. If not tonight, then tomorrow, just depending on how much we've got going on when we get out and about for today. So, the book for me is choppy. I did not feel like when I was reading it that it made just a ton of sense, and I was conflicted because yes, there is some atmospheric spookiness going on, but the writing style was not for me. And that's going to be one of my first critiques. And again, that's a point that may be on me. Maybe some people prefer this writing style, but I felt like people were asking questions or talking to each other, and there was no actual conversation happening. It was just people snapping and retorting at each other that did not a good dialogue make for myself. And someone else calls it complex. And yeah, I would call it complex, but in a not great way. Because again, because of these snappy retorts, I just felt like it was kind of disjointed. It didn't quite work for me. But I think that's just for me. Um, it did take a minute to get into it. And so, Birdie, she has been working as a maid. The summary makes it seem like she's pretending to be a maid. She has been working as a maid for a while in different houses. She has run across people, one particularly Nimbus, who was, I think, some sort of aristocrat's son. And then there was a mysterious individual behind a door that she never spoke to, or who never spoke back to her, but would draw her pictures, and she would pretty much kind of pour her heart out to them. But so there's also this tutor that worked with Nimbus, and maybe a mentor of sorts, but Birdie knows him pretty well as well. So from the beginning, there is this type of procedure, and we don't get much information, like at all, about this mysterious procedure, like what it does or why people want it or don't want it. Um, so, and it seems as though you don't like you go get this procedure, but they don't explain like what the procedure is supposed to do. And like for the entire book until you get like 85% of the way to the end. And I was like, okay, this is really annoying because like if you're going to make me curious, like more curious about this procedure, then give me something. Like Birdie's sister, her like, their parents, like Birdie and Magpie are sisters. So I guess I I'm guessing Birdie is too old, but Magpies like they save up so Magpie can get this procedure. They don't explain why. They don't like I guess it's for some sort of social advancement, but they don't really explain how that's supposed to work. Um so that's another thing. But now Birdie believes her sister to be at the House of Quiet. And again, they didn't really explain what the House of Quiet was. The summary kind of does. They say it's for like people who've gone through the procedure and then they come out on the other side with abilities that are hard to control. But that is not explained very clearly in the book. And so when Birdie is traveling to this house, they pick up a girl named Rabbit and a girl named Minnow. And so Minnow and Rabbit drink this special tea, and Birdie doesn't. And off they go to this mansion now, or this house, in the middle of this bog, which I just picture as being kind of a huge swamp that is very hard to get out of. They don't even explain like driving through it. Like I assume if you can drive a carriage through it that there is some sort of road that leads in and out, but they constantly talk about how people they walk away from this house and they get lost in the bog, and I'm like, isn't there a road? Like didn't you just take a road in? And sometimes people show up and they've taken the road in. So I was a little curious about that as well, because again, there is a lot that is unexplained throughout this book. Um, so we do have this House of Quiet. There is a housewife. The housewife seems more or less to be married to the house. In some way, she is connected, perhaps mentally, to this house. And there is a cook and there is a chauffeur, and there doesn't seem to be anybody else other than these kids. And so within this house, when Birdie gets there, she discovers that the boy she knew as Nimbus is there, but he is not in the same mental state that he was in previously. He is very catatonic in a lot of ways and cannot feed himself. So people have to feed him. And there is a guy named Forrest who does not talk. There is a girl named River who seems very posh and snobbish, but River has a big crush on Minnow. And honestly, they both have kind of a crush on each other. And then there is Dawn, And Dawn is very much what I would call a pretty, pretty princess. At least that's kind of how she's described. And so she seems to be, I think her ability, which is the most clear, is she is able to manipulate other people's emotions. So, especially if they're not really paying attention, they can all of a sudden be filled with anger, or they can be filled with sadness or fear, because Dawn can make them feel that. And Rabbit seems to be, she's a maid, but I think she more or less at one point in the book kind of gets consumed by the house. I don't know if her life force just gets sucked out or what, but at one point I was thinking, "Oh no, are we dealing with some sort of like psychic vampire situation?" So really wasn't sure. Um, I I think this book leaves too many questions just hanging out there. There's no clear like explanation of a lot of different things going on. And so one of the other reviewers that I tend to like just read their reviews is Nilufer Osmekic. Now they write very comprehensive reviews as well. So I do follow them because I enjoy seeing what they think about like various books. And this one is like this individual writes some very good reviews, and to the point that it does help like makes me think about aspects of the book that I didn't really think about. Like one of the things they mention is they talk about how the country is divided into the north and south, and it seems as though potentially maybe is it like this they're divided into north and south. It says there's the glaring class disparity, and the procedure exists to give children from impoverished families a chance at a better life. But that doesn't really explain like what they're doing. And they do talk about how kids from the north don't often get this procedure, because why would people in the south want to give the kids of the north like any sort of advantage, or just the north if they're doing this very distinct kind of separation. um, but again, so many questions because it's not really explained. And so even as you get towards the end, again, not really explained. Now, she or they also mentioned, and I don't know if Nilufer, or it's Nilufer, Nilufer. Um, they said the same thing that I was thinking. It says the further I read, the more questions than answers I got. So I don't really like that. I don't like when I'm just sitting here like so confused as to what is going on. Perhaps that's your cup of tea. Perhaps that's something that you look for, is just that complexity. But for me, it just really didn't work. It made it harder to read. And so that's why I don't give it as great of a review. And she also thought that, or they also thought that Birdie was fierce and determined. But I thought she was just stubborn and pigheaded, because I was just like, yeah, I get it. You want to find your sister, and that's great. But it's like she kept getting angry at people who couldn't help her, but she really wasn't explaining anything to them, and no one was talking to each other very clearly, because again, we're not talking to each other in conversation style. The dialogue is not linear. It feels like we're just snapping at each other for no reason. And so everybody seems to be in a piss off mood, and they don't actually want to talk to each other, and so nothing important really gets said. And then, oh, wait, I forgot to tell you, there is a girl named Lake. And Lake walks around, I think, half inside of a prophecy and half inside of the present. And so nothing she says is logical at all. So we've got all of that going on as well. So for me, this book was not exactly what I was looking for. Again, we do have some atmospheric spookiness going on. I think I was hoping for a little more horror and a little bit less questions. But other than that, like this could potentially be something that you would be interested in if you like that kind of story. If you are looking for something where you kind of have to piece it together along the way. Please don't be looking for answers to your questions until you get closer to the end, because that's the only time things are going to make sense for you. But there is that. So a lot of things will get mostly answered towards the end, but I hate to promise that everything's going to be answered because I still think I have questions. And I'm trying to remember if this was the book that I was reading that there was like automatically, like from the, was this the one that I was thinking of that in my brain I made a mental note that two different points, no, different books, so sorry, but so sorry, but I think with all of that being said, I'm going to go ahead and leave it here. I didn't explain much of the other characters, like Forrest's background. Let's just say Minnow is not quite who we all think she might be. And Rabbit, very strange. I think she's able to walk in people's dreams. Dawn, who can transfer her feelings. Lake, who is kind of... So and then Nillifer kind of refers to Lake as a charming liar who thrives on deception. And I don't think that's true. I think Lake cannot discern her prophecies in her brain from reality happening right now, because she is constantly looking at people going, why are you alive? You're dead. And that's what I'm like. And I'm like, I think she is halfway stuck between like the future and the present, and so she's unable to fully distinguish that line of reality now versus reality in the future. But I don't think she's a liar. I think what she's saying is potentially real. I just think that Lake doesn't know how to convey that, because again, sometimes when kids have this procedure, it breaks their brain, like literally breaks their brain. This procedure apparently can kill you guys. Well, not me guys, but us guys, but the people in the book. Now, we are close to the end of me wrapping this up, and I will say one thing, because the book did not explain this to me, but what the procedure does, if you were curious, because I was super curious, finally explains about 85% of the way through that what the procedure does is if you are a sensitive in any way to anything, like reading people's thoughts or telepathy, or like blah, 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 like all the different things that I've kind of explained with regards to the people's abilities. If you are sensitive, what this procedure does is almost blows open those pathways in your brain to make you more in tune with those abilities. And so from there, you could potentially become kind of like prophetic, or like, manipulate people's moods, or compel somebody, or walk in people's dreams. Like those are some various examples. But that's kind of what the procedure does. And I wish that had been explained to me like way earlier. And maybe we don't learn things until Birdie learns things, but my God, I was a little annoyed. Final thing I'm going to complain about is I think the chapters, they're not all from one particular character. And so I wish, as we jumped into a different character's perspective, they would title that chapter as such. If we're going to tell a little bit from River, please tell me the chapter is River. If we're going to talk about it being from Minnow, then tell me it's Minnow. I spent half of each chapter trying to figure out whose perspective I was in. And so that would have also been a bit beneficial as well. But I'm going to go ahead and leave this here. Hopefully my comments and critiques will help you determine your interest in this book. But with all of that being said, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this journey, and I will see you all on the next page. Have a great one. Bye.